Croeso. It's Friday, it's 4 o'clock, and it's Dragonheart. Wrexham schools are closing early. The winter term, like Sam Ricketts, won't even make it to Christmas. We mix with a different calibre of people at the racecourse these days. We learned this week we'll be getting advice from a man who's been high up in Microsoft, Reebok, EA Sports, Sega and Liverpool FC. Not so long ago, the only people interested in buying us were selling Sega Mega Drives in pub car parks and wearing Reeboks at their wedding. We'll be looking to spread into international markets, so hopefully Brexit won't affect us. Although I can confirm that we'll have to arrive early to games next year, as Mold Road will be closed because it'll be full of lorries queuing for Dover. I'm Mark Griffiths. I'm joined by Chay Long, and we'll be looking back at the Torquay game, talking about screaming, Dean Keates and centre forwards, and chatting with Fiacre Kelleher and Billy Ashcroft. So let's get cracking. It's time for Dragonheart.
I'm Kwame Thomas.
I'm Adi Yusuf here.
I'm Anthony Jeffrey.
And you're listening to the Dragonheart Radio.
So hello, welcome to Dragonheart, once again here to talk about everything important to do with Wrexham Football Club and a little else besides. And I'm joined by Chay Long. Hi Chay.
Hello, how's it going?
Not too bad, but not enough football. That's my problem at the moment. We need more footy, but poor old Wrexham, I mean, we've got a very sort of empty schedule at the moment.
It's the problem with COVID, isn't it? It's the most important part is that the players are safe and the staff are safe. So if they have to cancel these games for the safety of the players, then it is what it is, I think, at the end of the day.
Oh, absolutely right. Yeah, we can't help it.
Yeah.
But I do miss football, especially when you've only got an FA trophy tied to keep you warm still.
Yeah, this is the problem. But hey ho.
Beggars can't be choosers though, and after losing last Saturday as well, maybe a break is going to be as good as a rest.
Yeah, I think a good break, get their tactics right, set off for the next game.
So let's have a look back on that defeat at Torquay.
The other side, and you're listening to the Dragonheart Radio.
Yeah, so Torquay, a real disappointment, although not a huge surprise to lose away to the league leaders. Mixed their feelings about this, really, if I'm honest with you, Jay.
Yeah, it's the same here, really. I as soon as I click onto the stream, I believe they're in Tier 1, aren't they?
Yeah.
So I'm sure they have a good portion of their fans back. And with them being at the top of the table, I just kept on thinking, I don't think today's going to be our day. And as I said, they're a quality side, and I think they're going to be pushing for promotion this year.
Oh, no question. The thing that, I don't know, sort of, I feel slightly confused by that game, and the reason why is that they deserve to win. They were the better team. Yeah. They deserve to win, and definitely. I make no bones about that. And yet, it was a game that could have gone differently. Certain key moments affected it, and ultimately, I feel we did all right considering the calibre of side we came up against.
Yeah, definitely. But they were just at us from the get-go, weren't they? They scored in the first 5 minutes. Maybe an avoidable goal. Maybe the defending could have been a little bit better. Maybe on some days Dibble might have got a hand to that, but it's one of them. It was a good goal, good strike, bottom right-hand corner, I believe.
Yeah. And
we were off to a rough start straight away, and I thought we could be in for a long day today.
Yeah, it was very disappointing, that first goal, I think. I mean, watching it, I was disappointed. I rate James Horsfield as a fullback enormously, and it's his more defensive qualities that make him impressive. But he was backing off Whitfield too much, I felt it, throughout the first half, and he certainly backed off there and allowed a player who's strong on his right foot to have time to come in and nail it. He was showing him outside, but he wasn't close enough to force him outside, so he had time to come inside.
Exactly.
And then the second element, which we only found out afterwards about how frustrating that goal was, is that Dean Keates said that they'd been working on that big diagonal all week because that's what Torquay do. So they'd done the analysis, they knew what Torquay do, they prepared for it, and the players then didn't carry it out. Maybe because, you know, this congested COVID timetable, you don't have much time to embed things, but that was a frustrating thing to happen, and then we were under a lot of pressure after that as a result.
Definitely, they had chance after chance. They could have scored 2 or 3 in the first 15 minutes, and then there was that penalty decision, which I don't think was a penalty in my opinion. I think it was very, very soft.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I was thinking, just before that penalty was given, I was thinking, this could be, we're getting battered here, but this could be a good thing. If we just get through this spell, then we're going to come out the other side. It's like rope-a-dope, isn't it, really?
Yeah,
Let Foreman
exactly.
tire himself out, hitting Ali, and then Ali will come at you. They hit us with what they've got, and we survive, and we'll start getting confident, and they'll start getting frustrated, and the game turns. But then that soft penalty is given. I think it's never a penalty. I think the handball is moot because the stream doesn't prove it either way, although...
What got me, I rewatched the highlights and it didn't even look like the fans were appealing for it.
No.
Or either the players sort of did. But
Yeah.
I think they, you know, footballers, they'll try to get anything to get a penalty, won't they? At the end of the day, I thought that was, it was very soft. And I thought at that point, we are really going to struggle to get back into this game.
Well, Keates said after the match, he said that Vassell told him it hit his head and then his hand, and which means shouldn't be given as handball. And although tell Sadio Mane after the Champions League game, Liverpool played in midweek, that was a very strange decision. And then he also said that Torquay players had said we didn't think it was a penalty. My big issue with it, though why I'm strongly think it's not a penalty, is it was clear foul in terms of blocking off. The ball's put in towards the edge of the penalty spot, records underneath it, and the player he's marking grabs hold of him in both hands, can't let him turn around even to face the ball. The ball comes off Record's head to the player who has the shot because Record can't move himself. That is a foul. I mean, I'm sorry, ref, you're right next to it. That is a foul, and those decisions need to be given. You're very naive as a referee if you're not watching for people blocking off and holding on in the corner.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, as I said, the fans didn't even appeal for it. This was the weird thing about it. And usually when you watch a game anywhere and anything slightly near the hand, the fans go wild. I'm like, oh, it's a penalty. I thought, at the time, I thought they might have appealed for it because I've rewatched the highlights and I thought, no, they didn't even appeal for it. But not long after, we got a corner, didn't we? And we got a goal, and I thought, great, we're back into the game. It was a great header as well, wasn't it?
And it's good to see that because Vassell and Kelleher are really good at getting into great positions from set pieces and getting the end of set pieces. And that's the first time one of them scored, and it was good to see. I was really pleased for Vassell.
It was a great ball as well. I thought, we're back into the game now. If we can not be silly in the second half, we're back into it.
But they then did come at us quite hard, didn't they? And Dibble made some good stops.
Yeah.
And the second turning point for me after the penalty shout, Thomas getting injured, which right decision, medically led decision to bring him off, absolutely.
Definitely.
But sadly, we missed him in the second half because in the second half, we put a lot of pressure on him without maybe making the ball stick quite as much as we'd like in the box. That's Thomas's job. And in the first half, he had nothing to play with, but he was still beating people in the air. He just wasn't being given many opportunities to do so, was he?
Yeah, I think he was a huge miss, and I think it was flashback to Leighton, wasn't it, a few weeks ago? And I thought, I can't believe this is actually happening again. Yeah. But thankfully, is the medical staff come out of anything? Is he okay after it? Or
yeah, I believe so. They reckon he'll be okay for next Tuesday, apparently.
Well, that's good news, and you got to take concussions seriously. Yeah, I thought that was a big turning point. I think maybe we could have got back into the game. I know football's always full of ifs and buts, and you know what I mean. But I think if that penalty wasn't given, we went into the second half 1-1. I think the second half would have been a completely different game. I think we might have maybe even edged it. And
we did well in the second half, although the problem we've had this season of lack of cutting edge, not helped, like I said, by Thomas not being there. I think there were two main reasons, I thought, why we had much more of the ball than them in the second half. One is that Keates wisely switched formation, 4-3-3. That extra man in midfield gave us a little bit extra. The fact it was Durrell was interesting because it's a very attacking player, so he's still getting forward, so it was quite an attacking move. And frankly, the other thing in our favour, another key turning point, was Danny Wright going off, because I felt that Danny Wright he has a very good game.
Yeah.
Partly, and you know this as well as I do from watching him play for Wrexham, Danny Wright consistently is fouling people.
Yeah.
And it's sort of all about the referee's interpretation and tolerance level. And I've seen games where Danny Wright is constantly getting penalised. But this ref thought it was okay what he was doing. And a number of times you see him sort of like fouling a player when the ball's on the way in and the ref's not spotted it, and then he's able to have a player off balance to go at. But he was causing us so many problems.
That's good play, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
And also it's how they officiate the game. Each referee can interpret things differently, especially at the conference level as well.
Yeah.
But I thought their keeper looked a bit nervous as well at times. He come out of his line, didn't he, to punch the ball, and it sort of scrambled out anywhere. At any given day, that could have gone to the back of the net as well. Yeah. So I thought we were a bit unlucky at times, but we had a few mistakes in us, and it is what it is. We were playing the league leaders. They had fans in the crowd, and as we lost the game.
Yeah, we that goal, the third goal was in the breakaway. Yeah. I know again it was a diagonal. It was very unlucky, though, wasn't it?
Deflection as well, wasn't it?
Deflection off Harris in midfield first off. Yeah. The deflection off Durrell when they came in the box, and that's the downside of putting Durrell in midfield. He's going to have to track back in his own box, and that's not his strength. And then a deflection on the shot, although it was a powerful shot. Yeah, that was just one of those things. Even then, we were making chances.
It was definitely game over at that point.
Yeah. Although we had chances, Kelleher made poor contact, a good headed chance, free kick from Young. Yeah, it was one of those games where, all right, we lost 3-1. I think that was a fair reflection probably overall. But we probably put up more of a fight than most teams are doing against Torquay. Looking at some of they've battered some teams, haven't they? So
Definitely.
Not too bad.
I'm not crying, I'm disappointed because I think we didn't play fantastic, I'm not saying that, but maybe on other days we could have nicked a point there or something. Yeah. But that's football for you. They definitely deserve the win, and with their fans back, I think it's going to be interesting this season to see the different teams who can have fans back, and like us, we can't have any fans back, I think that can really change the game. I really do believe that's going to change the game.
No question, especially the volume that our fans generate as well. So
yeah, exactly. It's going to be crazy back at the racecourse once fans are allowed back.
I'll say. Well, somebody who actually has never experienced the Wrexham fans backing him is Fiacre Kelleher, and I was lucky enough to catch up with him, to chat to him about his start as a Wrexham player, and also to chat to him about how his brother's doing kind of quite well for himself as well.
I'm Fiacre Kelleher, and you're listening to Dragonheart Radio Show.
Well, Fiacre, firstly, thank you so much for joining us. And you seem to be enjoying yourself at the club. You seem to have settled in very well.
Yeah, it's been an easy transition for me. Everybody's been really good to me, and I've gotten to know everybody very quickly, and things have gone not so bad anyway so far for me.
And you've got the captain's armbands, which is good. When Jay was out of the team, that's quite an honour.
Yeah. Listen, I was only doing a fill-in job, but I was over the moon to just wear it for one game anyway. It was a real privilege just to walk out there and captain the lads out there. So yeah, it was really nice. And
you're following in famous footsteps at Wrexham, because you're from Blackrock near Cork, and Cork is where Brian Carey was a famous big centre back for Wrexham, and it's the similarities in the way that you play are there. Do players become aware of that sort of thing? Do people tell you, oh yeah, this guy was a bit like you?
Well, I've had a few neighbours and a few people back home tell me that if I do half the job that he did here, that I'd be doing all right for myself. So never have to live up to in that regard, but just try to do my best.
Yeah, well, he certainly did do a good job for us on and off the pitch, to be fair to him. Real credit to Cork, I tell you. But you also, it interests me. I'm going to sound really stupid now, to be honest with you. You started off playing hurling as well, didn't you? Is that right?
Yeah. So I played that from a young age, from about 6 years of age. That was kind of my first sport. And then at about 10 years old, then I got introduced into football, and then from there I kind of fell in love with it, and that was me. Then I kind of went away from the hurling. So, but I do have a good fondness for it. I like watching Cork when they're playing and stuff. So I do try watch it when I can.
Is it easy to get to watch hurling over here, or are you just sort of cut off from it a little bit?
No, it's gotten a lot easier the last few years. Sky Sports have taken up the coverage of it, so I do get all the big games. So that's quite nice.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Football looks like a bit of a gentle sport compared to hurling, from what I've seen of it, though. It's, if you can get through a game of hurling, you can get through a season of football, can't you?
Yeah, pretty much. That's kind of that's what I think as well. So I've not had many injuries there, thank God. So maybe that's why. I don't know, because I played it for a bit.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, they've softened you up, I think, haven't they? Yeah. And then you got into football, of course. Now, your first journey over the sea, you went to Celtic at first, didn't you? That must be an unbelievable experience.
Yeah. So I signed there when I was 16, and did my YTS all the way up there, and it was an incredible experience, really. Yeah, it's as you know, it's quite a big club, and it was again a privilege to just even be a part of it. And, I learned off a lot of good pros up there, and just learned a lot from there, really, to be honest.
It must be, I don't know, is it intimidating going to such a huge club, a huge place, or is it just exciting because it fills you with that challenge?
Yeah, it was more excitement, really. There was no, especially a lad coming from Cork, there was no pressure on me to do anything special, really. I was just going over there a bit naively, just trying to, wanting to make it to the first team as everybody else does. But unfortunately that doesn't work out, so you just apply your trade wherever you can then after that.
And then when you came south of the border as well, I mean, you've played at clubs of good pedigree. You were captain at Macclesfield as well. You've settled in well to that sort of the Football League standard of play, haven't you?
Yeah. It's taken me a few years, I suppose. Yeah. As a centre back, I think the more experience you have, the easier you can climb then, and managers start to trust you after you've played a certain amount of games because they know that you have that kind of experience. So I was just trying to get as much games as I could as a young player, and now I'm starting to reap a few rewards from it, and I'm starting to get more game time all the time. So that's just been the main aim, really.
And you were skipper at Macclesfield, but I mean, it was horrible what happened there to the club, and also what happened there to players like yourselves. Because I mean, clearly things didn't get cleared up by the Football League, and you were really left in a very tricky situation by the end of last season, weren't you?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't wish it upon anybody, really, what happened there. And especially after, we played a lot of games there where we hadn't been paid on time, and we were missing wages and stuff. We went through a lot of dark times there, and then it kind of finished on an even darker note with the club going down as well. So we never really got any closure from it, but I suppose that's just the way of things at the moment, and I'm just lucky now that I'm in a club that's has a bit of excitement around it now with the owners and things, and I've gotten a bit of fortune back, so kind of levels itself out, I suppose. Yeah,
well, I mean, obviously, all the players in your position, you genuinely had a problem of, will there be a job for you in football? When will you be released and able to do that? So Wrexham came in. I guess that probably was quite pleasing. I'd imagine that Dean Keates is quite persuasive when he talks to a player he wants to sign in terms of his projects, and there were people like Jay Harris, Elliot Durrell, people that you knew already there.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, the minute I spoke to him, that he kind of sold it to me, and he just was so positive about the whole thing. And I as he said there, I know Jay and I know Elliot, and I know the cell as well. So I knew the calibre of player that was here already was really good, and there's a few older players in like Sean and Cara and Paul Rutherford that I knew were of a good level as well. So it was a no-brainer really for me to come here and sign up.
I think Dean's like a proper football man, isn't he? And I think that players, he speaks your language, if you will, and he knows how to explain a project rather than somebody who would just waffle a bit. You think he'll get to the point and hit the points that you want to hear.
Exactly, that's it. Yeah, he knows the ins and outs of things in the change room and things that players like to know before they sign for a club. So yeah, he was able to fill me in on all the things that I wanted to know about, and all the things that that are important to football players when they move club. So yeah, once I'd gotten all that off him, I was just really keen to get it over the line then.
You were, you came in part of the way through pre-season, that couldn't be helped. And yet, despite that, hit the ground running. For me, the first game against Boreham Wood, you were head and shoulders above everyone else in terms of performance on both sides. And then you've continued to get a good partnership going with Theo as well.
Yeah, I would I suppose I just had missed football for so long, and I was just so happy to be back in a good place where I didn't have to worry about wages or anything like that. I could just completely focus on my football. So come that first game, I was just I was raring to go. So I was pleased it went well, and now I'm just really hoping that we can push on again now and get to where we want to go.
Absolutely. You say about pushing on, and you mentioned Sean Pearson earlier. Something that's been striking in these home games, especially lately, is Sean pops up in the other stand and he's shouting more than the bench are. I mean, you've not played alongside him yet, but you've had a good taste of the standards he expects, haven't you?
Yeah. Listen, I've played against Sean once or twice as well, so I know exactly what he's like, and he just wants to help the team in any way he can, and when he's not playing, listen, he can shout and keep us in shape and things like that. So he does everything he can to keep us going. So he's a good skipper.
Yeah, you might not think that when he's 2 feet across from you, though. I tell you.
I'm sure I will.
You will do, but you'll have an earache in one ear, I reckon. Your left ear will be gone. And I've got to say as well, just finally, when the big story, Ryan Reynolds, Rob McElhenney. Now, you were the Hollywood Kelleher for a bit, but now your brother's getting all the headlines, isn't he? I mean, that's just fantastic. What an achievement by him.
Yeah, it was only a matter of time really before he popped up and got his game time there at Liverpool. So it's been an incredible week for him, an incredible week for all my family and for me as well. We're all just so proud of him, and he really is he's just doing unbelievable. So I couldn't be prouder of him.
Well, I was going to say that they must be very proud back home as well to see him. And a club like Liverpool have got good links with Ireland as well, obviously the port town and everything, and to see him at a huge club performing in the Champions League like that as well. Wow, that must have a hell of a buzz back home.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, Cork is probably 50% Liverpool and 50% Man United. So there's great ties there, and I'm getting hundreds of messages, so I can't imagine how many he's getting from back home. So it's just incredible for everybody, especially with this year being so tough. He actually, without knowing it, he's brought a lot of smiles to people's faces back home. So he's done well.
Well, you Kellehers, you're doing a good job defensively over here. You're our rock, you're our wall of Cork, and he's Blackrock Castle. Not bad, eh?
I'll take that, yeah.
Nice one. Well, Fiacre, can I just say, it's an absolute pleasure to speak to you. It's been brilliant, and best wishes for the rest of the season, mate.
Thank you very much, mate, and have a good Christmas as well if I don't see you.
And you, absolutely. Certainly, thank you. Cheers.
Thank you very much, cheers.
John Ponticelli, and you're listening to the Dragonheart Radio Show.
So Fiacre Kelleher there, good signing by Dean Keates. And speaking of Keates, well, we've not been able to do a proper show since the Bromley match, and that was Keates' 100th as a Wrexham manager in the league, and maybe it's worth just taking a bit of time to think about him in context. What's your take on Keates the manager?
I think he's doing quite well at the moment. I think last month he won Manager of the Month, didn't he?
Yeah.
Which, and we've had some great results as well. We're not conceding yet. Yes, the last 2 games they've not been the best, and I think at times we can set out not to lose rather than going out for the win. I think that frustrates a hell of a lot of fans, and sometimes our football's not pleasing to the eye. But I believe he is the man to take us forward, and I think we need to be patient with him.
Yeah, he's very good in the transfer market, and if we're going to have a bit of money to spend, I'd rather have somebody who's wise in their choices. And I have a slightly different interpretation to the norm over Keates' intentions. I'm not convinced he wants to be a negative manager so much as he knows it's important to get the basics right, and he's had a bit of misfortune in terms of when he's trying to get teams to be more creative. So if you go back to that first full season where we famously didn't let any goals and we didn't score many goals, he did bring in Jack McCrath from Bury, a player playing regularly in the Football League with terrific pace. Theoretically, that guy was our creative man. He had Scott Bowden, who had a very good scoring record and has done since he's left us, but first game of the season, he's playing up front. Holroyd's a second striker. Holroyd gets a long-term injury. Bowden then starts playing second striker behind strikers like Masanka and Reid, and he doesn't fire in front of goal, absolutely. He's been unlucky with that sort of thing. I think he's been a bit unlucky this season. Ponticelli's a striker, I think, with the scoring pedigree, but he's really not been fit. He's put in some good performances, but he's not been fit. And things like we mentioned earlier, putting Durrell into midfield to try and chase the game is, a positive move. I just think things haven't quite come off for him. He's been a little unfortunate in that respect, and to get that image of Keates ball and just looking for clean sheets. I
agree to an extent. I think sometimes some players are amazing signings on paper and they just don't quite come off. That's just football for you. But I think we just need to be patient with him. I think against some of the teams we can do really well with Keates as manager. I agree. I think we need to be patient, and I think we need to at least give him till February. Yeah.
His stats stack up well against other managers throughout our history as well. Because of that stingy defence, he's got a very sort of low defeat percentage, better than a lot of big names in our history. Yeah. So you can't just ignore that. The results are decent, better than you expect when you consider that a good chunk of his career has been coming in and saving teams from relegation.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we want. Look at last season, the way we were playing and the way we finished. Yeah. We could have gone down. Yeah. Those are the facts. And look where we are now. I believe, aren't we 3 points away from third or something like that, or something along those lines? Couple wins here and there, and we're back in with it. And we have a good run at the end of the season, we get to the playoffs, and who knows what can happen when you hit the playoffs. Yeah, well,
precisely.
Yeah.
And that's just a great question, wasn't it, of if he'd stayed, because that team that never let goals in and was going well when he left. Okay, the title was a long shot, although not completely impossible, but in the playoffs we'd win the team you don't want to draw, because how will you beat us? Yeah. We didn't lose games, did we?
Yeah, exactly, and I think... Yeah, exactly. I agree.
Beautiful arguments.
Yeah, I can't argue against that.
Yeah, exactly. And he tried to make that side more creative in other ways as well. I remember he used to play Marcus Kelly out wide and have two sort of holding midfielders. He put Kelly in the middle. He brought in Devedix. Maybe Devedix would have been more of a success if Keates had stayed. But I think his story is more of a manager who set teams up very well, and his attacking moves have not quite come off, rather than a manager who wants to win 1-0 or play 0-0s out.
The thing is, would you rather be drawing and winning some games and maybe playing not the most pleasing football, we're going to play nice and organised, or would you like to play creative and fluid and concede a lot of goals? Yeah. You look at Brighton in the Premier League, for example, they play beautiful football. and they're playing really good teams off the park, but they're not winning all their games.
Yeah. Look at it is against Liverpool last weekend, where they kept it tight and should have won it, compared to Wolves, who goes to Liverpool, try to go at them, and get blown out of the water. So
Exactly.
yeah, it's well organised team is better than it's a shambles, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think in our league, it's even more important to be organised, especially at the back.
And it's hard to be consistent in our league. It's a sort of league where everyone can beat everyone else, and with COVID making everything weird, that lack of continuity means a side that can settle and be consistent could have a decent advantage.
Well, everyone bangs on about the Championship being the hardest league to get out of. For me, I think it's the Conference.
Yeah.
Because anyone can beat anyone, and there's only two positions to get promoted. So I think yeah, it's a really tough league, and I think we just, anyone can beat anyone. We beat Sutton 4-0 last month, and we've lost a few games in between then. I just think we need to be a bit patient. We'll be fine with the Keates, I think.
I think so too. Well, after this, we'll have a chat about a massive change in the way that we consume football and talk about how streaming has affected Wrexham Football Club.
I'm Rhys Johnson, and you're listening to the Dragonheart radio show.
I'm very, very lucky I get to go to the home games at least and actually experience it firsthand, but we're all having to watch games on screens now, and maybe it opens up possibilities. Certainly, Chay, for you. I mean, you're a die-hard Wrexham fan, for a long time, and yet streaming has really sort of rekindled your connection with the team, hasn't it?
Well, yeah, of course. I think a few years ago, 3-4 years ago, I stopped going to watch Wrexham because I simply couldn't afford it at the time, my job, whatever. Won't get into that too much, and I think we'll jump into the Corona times, and when football's... I couldn't get enough when football was back. I was wanting to watch any football that was on, Premier League, Spanish League, German League, whatever. And when Wrexham were back on the TV, I was like, you know what? I'll buy the game. I got hooked instantly and started really enjoying it. And I think the takeover helps as well, and what have you. And I think it's the future of watching football is streams.
It is. Because I've been watching the away games on the streams, and before I started watching them, I thought it was going to be horrible. There'll be rubbishy footage and frustration. And no, I think it's been a good, positive experience. You can see people learning how to do it. Torquay were terrific in their presentation.
And Bromley,
for example,
too.
And Bromley,
yeah.
And you really, it's a fascinating experience to be able to sit in your front room and access it like that. The problem to me is that I think this is great, but I feel that when the crowds are allowed back in, they'll want to cram it back in the box and not have this feature.
Which I think is a really big shame, because I don't think you have to have one and not the other. I think you can have both, and they can both support each other. So I think a lot of people who got say they work, or they have got they're like a low-income family, and they can't afford to take them and their kids and their girlfriend or boyfriend to the game, and they can't afford to go to a tenner. They can just put it on the stream, they can watch it, they can do whatever they like. And I think it's the future of watching football. I think by having more streams and getting the revenue from the away fans and of course our international fans in the future, especially post takeover, I think it's going to be. I think you can drive the prices down to get into the games, to make that cheaper, so you can have more people actually in the ground by having the stream.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting you mentioned takeover, because ironically, in some ways, they've timed this perfectly. By luck, it's got to be said, because having games suddenly going on exclusively streaming means that as high-profile new owners try to build our profile worldwide, anyone in the world can watch our matches, and that's just perfect compared to last season, where they can encourage people all they want, but you wouldn't be able to watch the game live.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they'll be able to watch the highlights or listen to the radio, but it's not the same as actually watching a game of football, especially.
Well, unless you're listening to me commentating, like paint words, pictures. Come on, Shay. Fair play. but you're talking to a god here.
The thing is, I think with football we lag a little bit. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I think we think we're too good for this. We think we're too good for streams. But if you look at it, I'll take another sport I really follow quite closely is the UFC, and they have their own streaming platform, which is Fight Pass, and you can get documentaries, you can get all sorts of shows, you can get all the fights, but you can also pay for the big fights that are coming up. So it's $6.99 a month for all of this content, and you can just pay bit by bit for the streams. And I think it's a fantastic service. I think it's the future of football in general.
Do you think it's easier in a sport like UFC because it is in essence a new sport and therefore can create its own traditions which link in with modern technology, whereas football is an industrial revolution sport? You work hard all week, Saturday 3 o'clock then is sacrosanct, that's when you go and you watch the game, and therefore that is sort of a protected time, because that's the reason they'll give to not have streams is 3 o'clock on Saturday, you're not allowed to broadcast matches, it'll affect attendances. Now, I do understand, I respect that.
Yeah, so do I. But I think also another one you can think of is, if the Premier League does it, where you can watch games at any time, or say they stop doing, I think their tactic will be they'll stop playing games as much at 3 o'clock. So they'll have the United game on at 5 o'clock instead. There's going to be a lot of Wrexham fans thinking, I'm not going to go to the Wrexham game because I want to watch the United game or what have you. Why not have the stream on so they can watch the Wrexham game, then watch the United game, and they'll still have the revenue coming in. Yeah. It's better than having no revenue at all, isn't it?
Yeah, that's an interesting point you raised there. I think that if streaming is going to sort of overcome those traditions, and you are allowed to stream at 3 o'clock on a Saturday, which, like I said, is the sacrosanct sort of thing that you're not allowed to broadcast anything, it'll probably because Premier League teams are following the money and imposing that rather than any thought about providing the service for fans, really, won't it?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of not if, when it happens with the Premier League, because the Premier League it's nothing like our league. It's nothing like the lower leagues, is it? Let's be fair. They will have a Netflix-styled thing, I think, within the next 5 years, whether it's to do with Amazon, and you'll just be able to buy whatever game you like. And I think if the National League and the EFL doesn't do a similar sort of thing, I think we'll be lagging behind. I think the numbers will go down in the stands anyway.
Well, the thing is, the EFL already have it, but only if you're overseas. And if we go up, we will be locked into fairly restrictive Football League deals, which are financially beneficial. Please don't get me wrong. I mean, I was listening to the chairman of Harrogate yesterday saying that they've actually coped with COVID quite well, simply because their costs were low anyway. They didn't expect to get promoted, and so the amount of money that then got thrown at them at the start of the season from promotion has just set them up crazily well. But we will lose some control of our ability to put certain things out there, and one of them will I guess, be streaming. It'll be interesting to see how that pans out when we go up, should I say, which might not be this summer, obviously.
Well, I think it's interesting to see, because I think Wrexham and your Notts County, your Stockports, your big clubs in the conference, they might do well with this streaming service. But I'd like to see the conference north sides streaming and things like that, and the lower sides, Eastleighs, people are they going to be making much money off it? Is it actually worth them doing it? Yeah. So it's interesting.
That's the issue there, that the National League, I'm quite sure, will be behind the times, because they tend to be. But then that's both a disadvantage when you're in the National League, because often their legislation doesn't reward forward thinking or blocks it. But it also means that sometimes it's cowboy country in the National League, so you can, we could stream because they hadn't thought to bring in any rules on streaming. So you just do what you want.
Pretty ridiculous, really, isn't it?
It is ridiculous, but that's the league we find ourselves in.
That's very amateurish. You'd think they'd got that sorted, but it would be interesting to see, as you mentioned, the Harrogate chairman, what they would have been like if they would have stayed in our league, and if they would have not got, because they went up via playoffs. They? Say if Notts County went up last year, I'm sure it was not Notts County they played. If they would have been able to survive throughout all COVID.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would have been really interesting to see.
But streaming, well, it's definitely here to stay. But who knows how stuck in the mud football might be in terms of actually accepting and normalising it. Who knows?
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. Well, after this, Have a listen to a legend who gone from the future to the glorious past, Billy Ashcroft, the Yeti himself.
The other side, you're listening to the Dragonheart Radio.
Well, it's fantastic to have a legend like you, Billy, on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
We should start at the beginning, I suppose. I mean, you signed for us as a young lad. I mean, that was an exciting time, it looks to me, the early 70s. Lots of young players coming through, and the club was really making strides forward.
Yeah, well, it was just when John took over, and I was 14. I had the trials, and when I was 15, I was in the youth team and reserves. With the likes of Eddie May was in the first team, Steve Ingle, Ray Smith, Albert Kinsey, and all of a sudden we had this sort of a gang of youth came into it, and it was like Graham Whittle, Bob Scott, Alan Dwyer, Dave Smallman, and it was just that youth. Because we were all mates, each other do anything with each other, for each other. You know, we'd go to the pub of a night, we played darts, the next day we come in training, and it's more like a holiday resort. You just look forward to going to work every day.
That's fantastic. And I mean, you, like I say, on the pitch then, you'll leave it all on the pitch, won't you? Because you don't want to let your mates down.
Well, that's what it was. I mean, we never sort of got into any trouble in the pubs and stuff like that, but it's, that where it's like, if one gets into trouble, you all get him out of trouble, you're all there behind him. It was the same on the pitch. As soon as somebody kicked me and I stood up to them, like Bob or even Dave Smallman, the size of Dave, he was there. They were all jumping in. It was like you back each other up to the hilt.
And you, am I right? You're giving your debut quite almost immediately after signing for professional terms.
Well, what it was, I was going to make my debut. I was going to be 17 when I did. I made my debut, but I broke my nose up at Roscommon with a guy called Billy Blow, and I caught the back of his head, and it was such a really bad break that it took me, I think, it was about 3 weeks to recover. I made my debut on the 3rd of October, but I'm not sure. I think I signed on the 10th. I signed professional forms on the 10th, so I was just 18.
So, what's it like when you're making a debut that young as well? Are you just fearless? Do you just go for it?
Well, to be honest with you, not really, because I've not played much football as a kid. I never played for the school or something. So everything I did was new to me. So I think the first game I played was up at Roche Robin or somewhere like that. Or it was the first time I played centre forward. And then the following week, I was in the reserves. I was only 15, and I played against Oric Williams, the wrestler from North Wales. And this idea of marking, tight marking, was put you in a headlock. So I thought, if I can get through playing in the Welsh League and the Northern Floodlit League, which was a brilliant league for the reserves, and then going down to Reading for my debut, I don't think I'd be feared. I was just looking forward to it.
Oh, brilliant! And of course, things developed. Of course, I mean, you were playing in Europe, the Zurich game, and things like that must be, and Anderlecht, real experiences.
It was unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, obviously being the sort of Welsh representative, we got. People say we got in through the back door. But I don't think in all the time Wrexham have been in that league and in that cup, they've never let themselves down. Yeah. And I think we got to the quarter-final against Anderlecht, and probably gave them the biggest shock of the tournament. But it was the same. We played Djurgårdens. We were very unlucky to lose against Split. But you're coming from Liverpool and you think, I'm playing for this little team in North Wales, and all of a sudden you're playing the cream of Europe. And it was a fantastic time. Fantastic.
Amazing. And FA Cup run as well, got to the last days.
Well, I think we were doing the rotation system then, and I was on on the bench or in the bar or something like that, because I didn't play a lot of the FA Cup games. But I think the thing with that was Dave Smallman became sort of iconic at Wrexham because he scored in most of the rounds, and he became such a player that Everton came in for him, and obviously Everton come calling, you've got to go. Yeah.
I tell you what, when you look at Wrexham's fan forums on the internet, and fans who were watching the games in the 70s, they always talk about your header at Oxford from Well, every time someone describes it, it gets a little bit further out. Do you remember that one?
Strangely enough, people have said to me, what was the best goal you scored? And I'm loath to tell them because, obviously there wasn't many there from Wrexham. It's a long way to go.
Yeah.
But it was the best goal I've ever scored. It came in from the left. I think it was foggy. And I was coming in from the edge of the 18-yard box. Wrong side header for me. And I've never got up as high in my life, and it absolutely flew to the top corner. But there wasn't many there to see it, you know. So, it was, for me, that was my best goal ever.
It's a real shame as well, I got to say, because I've been like trying to find as many videos of Wrexham games as possible, like from the past. It's such a shame that, like, for yourself, you know, we struggle to find much footage of you. You know, I mean, players playing now will be able to look back and see pretty much their whole careers, and it's a shame that we can't relive moments like that.
Well, yeah, I think it was Pathé News when I was playing so long ago. But, I mean, I see some people, you know, the games from some of the first division back then when you see Roger Hunt and Ian St. John and Alan Ball and people like that. And then we were sort of slightly after that, but there's no film, there's no footage. There's a little bit of Star Ezra, and there's the Anderlecht game, but it's poor quality. Yeah. And then, even when I went to Middlesbrough after that, there's only about half a dozen games that you can get on sort of a video or whatever it's called these days. But it's just a shame because the team we had, it'd be great to look back and see some of those great players.
Oh, absolutely. I tell you another game that I'd love to be able to see is you scoring 4 at Chesterfield. Now, more recently, we've had bad memories at Chesterfield, but I believe it was after the really hot summer, and suddenly it just broke and started pouring down, and you just couldn't stop scoring, I believe.
It was the most surreal thing, you know. It's I mean, I scored a hat-trick, but never 4 goals, and as you say, it's everything I hit seemed to go in. It was bending from almost going to hit the goal, put the corner flag, and all of a sudden a gust of wind might have took it. But 4-0 at Chesterfield, that just shows you what kind of team we had in them days. Oh
yeah, absolutely. And of course, I mean, you mentioned John Neal at the start, incredible man, incredible manager, and someone who you were, you know, very closely linked to, of course, because he took you to Middlesbrough.
Yeah, John, I know he was my boss, but he was more than a boss. He was a mate, and he took me to Middlesbrough, and made me the record sign for Middlesbrough, and I think after 2 years, it wasn't working out great. I mean, I wasn't scoring the goals, but he kept faith in me, put me centre half, and he sold Stuart Bowman, who was like iconic figure at Middlesbrough. So I played centre half. But then when John left, he went to Chelsea, and the manager took over. Bobby Murdoch didn't fancy me at the end of the season. He put me on a free transfer, and the first person on the phone was John Neal. So I went down to Chelsea to speak to him about signing for Chelsea, and he was saying what we were going to do, and I would have signed except for actually meeting the chairman, which I didn't get on with. Yeah. And obviously the next day I was in Holland signing for FC 20.
Yeah, that's a remarkable move, really, isn't it? It's came up against some real quality teammates and opponents there.
It was just unreal. I played against the old guard, which was Cruyff and Rep, Van Hannigan, Naskins, and then the new guys, which was Gullit and Van Basten and the Koeman brothers. It's just, but the thing that made me sort of most proud is I was given a free transfer, and I was like, "Oh, you're on the scrap heap, so if you go into Holland, it's just for an easy payday." And some of the sort of newspaper press over there said, people come over here just for an easy ride, but this guy didn't come across. And I'm really well thought of up there, which is a great thing. You know, I go to another country and get into the Hall of Fame, and you know, it's just a great feeling.
That's superb, isn't it? And then when you came back, I remember at the time there was talk that you were possibly going to go back to Wrexham. Was that true, or was it not a possibility?
They never got in touch. So, I mean, obviously, that would have been my first choice. Yeah. But Frank Worthington phoned me up. He said he's going to try and do something at Tranmere. And to be honest with you, I actually left. I think it was a year. I stayed in a year too long. And especially when we came to Wrexham, and Nick Henshaw apparently scored this goal, and he never shut up about it. He said he went past me and about 4 other players, hit it from 40 yards. And do you know something? I don't even remember him playing.
Well, you know what? I'm going to look at the stats now and see if he's telling the truth, because I don't remember that either.
He did score, because he told me about it every time. It was a better goal than any of Dixie's goals, apparently.
He didn't score that many at St James's Park, though, did he, to be fair?
He certainly didn't, and not from the edge of the 18-yard box.
Exactly. The screamer I remember him scoring was against Brumbo Steelworks, which feels like a slightly different level of game to me. Mind you, just looking at his record, he scored more goals than I thought. Fair play.
What was that, true?
I'd say I'll load a different spreadsheet up. He scored 10 in 36 starts. That's pretty tasty, to be fair.
He's a great lad.
Yeah.
I love coming over, when I come over and see Henry always looks after me and Dixie. I mean, that's one of the sort of regrets. I wish I could have stayed another season with Dixie, because I think we'd have torn people to pieces.
Yeah. It was. It must have been strange. I mean, it's a brilliant move to Middlesbrough, but I suppose you look across and what Wrexham were achieving. Well, I suppose you could. Yeah.
I was just so pleased for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just one of them things that I've left, and I'm praying that they wouldn't start selling all the players. And I think basically that's why John never came back to buy Graham Whitlow or Bobby Shinton, because he didn't want to break up that team, because he knew there was something there that they would have done something. So it worked out brilliant in the end.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm just looking through Nick Hench's career here, trying to spot it. Oh dear.
How many times he bought me a beer?
I'm afraid
you won't have to look far.
He might be telling the truth, I'm afraid. 1985, 1-1 at the racecourse, a Frank Worthington penalty, and then he scored the 88th minute.
Has he got me man of the match?
Well, I'm sure he would say it was him. Oh, brilliant. Well, honestly, Billy, thank you so much for talking to us. It's an absolute pleasure. And,
As I say, you're more than welcome. I just can't wait to get back over there. I love coming back to the racecourse.
Yeah. And I know I speak on behalf of everybody who ever saw you play in saying thank you for everything you've always done for us, because you are genuinely one of the greats. So thank you very much, Billy.
Well, I'm just thankful that everybody remembers me in such a nice way. Cheers.
Oh, we're not going to forget you, don't worry.
I'm Luke Young, and you're listening to the Dragonheart radio show.
Billy Ashcroft, a legend of the game, a massive target man. But I'm going to ask you, did those sort of players, those big elbow in the face fighting centre forwards, did they still exist, Jay?
Well, I think the target man's a different sort of player. They have to play a bit more football this day and age, like Giroud and people like that. Yeah. They're great target men, but you don't see that sort of rough and tumble sort of striker anymore, do you?
Benteke.
Yeah.
Benteke has been a sort of possible example. But also I think that Ashcroft, and I'm going back to when I was a kid, Ashcroft, I'm afraid, sorry Billy, slightly before my time. I remember him from Middlesbrough vaguely. More as a Panini sticker than a player, if I'm honest. But Jim Steele was my sort of hero in the early 80s. Big, awkward, Scottish, physical centre forward. But it wasn't the ball sticking with him and winning flick-ons as much as he used to score a lot of goals heading in crosses. I feel like you don't see that sort of striker that attack the ball in the Benteke, I'm saying, fits some of those sort of images, but
Andy Carroll.
Yeah, Andy Carroll, he fits, doesn't he? But he can't keep fit. Keep fit, that's the problem. Benteke is more the sort of modern target man. The ball bounces off him, sometimes unintentionally, but he gets the ball off him, he holds the ball up, doesn't score goals though.
No, he scored 2 against West Brom the other day, which is quite funny. But
I think I've scored 2 against West Brom.
But I think, to be fair, I think the role of a target man, I think within the next 20 years may change, because heading the ball for youngsters is being banned very, very slowly. That's coming in. So I think heading and holding up the ball might not be a thing in 20 years. I think they're not training it as much. But I think it's a part of the game where I think it shouldn't be out, because I really enjoy it. It's quite fun to watch a big lump holding up the ball. But can you think of anyone who played for Wrexham who?
I mean, recent times. I mean, you've got Thomas at the moment, but again, he's more your modern style target man. He's very good in the air, dominant in the air, but he's also mobile, and he's not really looking to score lots as much as set people up. I'm sure I thought of somebody else. I've completely forgotten who it was. You mentioned, I'm going to steal your clever idea, Drew Broughton.
Yeah.
Who definitely was but again, goal-scoring target man, or an assist merchant.
Dele had the bowler.
Dele, yeah.
Two both loanees, weren't they, at the time, I think, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Adebowler was a short-term contract, I think.
Yeah, well, he wasn't there for long, but I thought he was actually an alright player, and I think he got a lot of sticks. I think everyone was really good in that team. Yeah. I thought when he come on, I think he come on against Mansfield, him and Glenn Little really changed the game. When they come on, we end up winning that game.
He'd lost that mobility. I'm old enough to remember him as a young lad, and he was then a dynamic player who would get the ball, run at people and score goals from outside the box, as well as winning the ball with his strength. But we got him at the end of his career, and I agree. I think people had an image of him that was unrealistic, and what he actually was a quite static target man, and he did that job perfectly well. I thought he was never a long-term signing. He was about 38 when he played for us. I'm pretty sure, I'm not going to check now, but he was like in our top 10 oldest players, I think.
Yeah. You could see he wanted to do things. Yeah. But his legs and his knees obviously couldn't keep up, and I thought he looked a bit of a handful. I think in some games he was all right, and he got quite a bit of stick. But remember, that team was really good. Yeah, that was a good team.
He scored a goal from the halfway line at Lincoln that put us top of the table. That shouldn't be sneezed at. And I always remember his debut, him against Darren Kempson, who had left us, who was a big, brawny, slow centre back. And it was like King Kong versus Godzilla. It was brilliant, just the two of them just smashing against you on the edge of the area. It was a 0-0 draw. Nothing came of it. But at least the Earth stayed on its axis. And when Dele Adebola slams into Darren Kempson, you're worried that we might just go spinning off into a different part of the galaxy.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. But I think that elbow in, big, strong, centre forward, I can see that slowly dying out in the future with the way the game's going.
Yeah, although I suppose it's probably true to say that football does go into patterns anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, so that player dies out a bit, then that player comes back into fashion. It's maybe sort of death of wing play to an extent. You know, you think of wingers now, wide players tend to be inverted wingers who will come inside and attack and try and score themselves, like at Liverpool. You know, you got Mane and Salah coming inside and scoring. You haven't got so many players going around the outside. Your full-backs are going around the outside to put the crosses in.
That's it. I was going to say that full-backs now are very more important. Yeah. More and more important type of player now. Yeah. You look at Trent Alexander-Arnold now and Robertson. Yeah. They changed the game. They're like another winger at times as well.
It wasn't so long ago that the full-back was your basic player.
Yeah.
He could do a solid defensive job, and he wasn't expected to get above the station and go up the line too much.
Gary Neville, basically, wasn't it? Yeah, that sort of thing.
Whereas now you've got, well, like I say, that Liverpool paradigm. I know it's not the only way to play football by any stretch of the imagination, but a lot of teams use inverted wingers. You've got Mane and Salah coming in from wide, cutting in the box. They're the goal scorers. Firmino is not the goal scorer, he drops off deep to pull players out of position for Mane and Salah to come in. The fullbacks are the players going outside to deliver from wide, but they're not delivering high balls in for a big centre forward, because that big centre forward has been replaced essentially by an attacking midfielder in Firmino, whose job in those situations often is to get out of the danger area to allow those other players to get onto something. So it's
exactly, and again, that doesn't always work, because we watched the Villa game against Liverpool.
It didn't work then, did it?
And Grealish tore Trent to pieces. So football comes around in cycles, doesn't it?
I'm Elliot Durrell, and you're listening to the Dragonheart Radio Show.
So there we are. Another Dragonheart's done and dusted. Weymouth on Tuesday, FA Trophy next Saturday. We're playing essentially from now till the end of January, a game every 10 days or so. It's going to be quite weird, isn't it, having this football-less landscape?
Yeah, that's the thing, as I said at the start of the show, COVID, it's going to get in the way at the time, especially at our level, when they can't test as frequently as they do in the Premier League. I think we're going to have a lot of troubles, but hopefully on to Weymouth now, and hopefully we can get a decent result there.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, an empty Christmas period. Weird, because of course, sadly Macclesfield don't exist. We were supposed to play them Boxing Day and New Year's Day, and well, those games are happening. So that's a real shame. But we make the best of what we got, and let's hope that we can pick things up again on Tuesday.
Definitely.
And now to sign off as ever, it's the Jay Harris Hollywood Send-Off.
This is Jay Harris, and you're listening to Dragonheart Radio.
Thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe as well so you don't miss out on any of our content, and click the bell to get notifications.